Okay, I think we are ready to go. My name is Scott, man of long-term recovery, and I want to thank everybody for taking time to join us on our recovery town hall. I'm with a bunch of my peers, people in the field, and what we're going to do tonight is have a conversation because ultimately we're all journeyers on the same path, and we share our strength, hope, and experience. And this is going to be the same thing, really. And we ask all of you to kind of listen and learn and share in this conversation by using the chat box. Talk about the challenges and the barriers that you're seeing, but also the strength and the successes and the potentials that you see as well. And as I said, everybody here is a peer. We're all recovery supporters in one way or another. I'll let everybody sort of introduce themselves. And again, feel free to partake and participate as you are moved to do so. We're going to start with two folks who are going to talk a little bit about families. And, you know, families in recovery have, its own dynamic, but being quarantined as a family in recovery, I'm sure must be something that's adding a whole new dimension. So Jody and Matt are here to discuss that, to have a conversation with us about that. And Jody and Matt, go for it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jody. Matt will be back in a moment. We have a child issue that he's dealing with. You might be able to hear in the back. So he'll be here in a couple minutes, hopefully. I'm Jody. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I'm also someone who works in the field of behavioral health and has for quite some time. So our topic is to talk about facing challenges during quarantine and being in recovery. So I'm just going to talk briefly about a couple things, and then I'll let Matt talk about it. You know, we've been in quarantine since the beginning of March. We have two kids with us. We have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. So I guess the first thing I want to say is that, you know, isolation for anyone, I think, is extremely difficult and not good for well-being, but let alone those of us who suffer with mental illness and addiction. So, you know, one of the biggest things that we've tried to accommodate and balance is still having connections with other people, and also just trying to find a self-care balance for ourselves. You know, being in recovery, there's a lot of things that, you know, I do on a daily basis to take care of myself when I'm not on quarantine, and trying to figure out how we can do that while we're still in the same house. You know, it's, you know, we're both working from home, we're homeschooling, we're trying to, you know, do meetings, you know, physical self-care, emotional self-care, and just the challenges that come with finding personal space in your home. You know, I want to say that I've been fortunate to be quarantined with my family. I think that there's been some gifts that have come out of it. You know, some things about practicing more time together, getting into some different habits, you know, less, you know, electronics, you know, doing puzzles, reading, you know, just different things to try and kind of curb the anxiety of just being home. You know, we have a schedule. I think that's probably one of the best things that we did for ourselves and our kids, is to kind of create a schedule, you know, waking up around the same time, you know, breakfast, schoolwork, we had gym class, you know, just things to kind of have some type of normal day-to-day functions in our home. But also, you know, the last thing I just want to say, and then I'll let Matt talk a little bit, is that, you know, we also have to create an environment that, you know, we do need some separation, which is not always easy when you're under the same roof, but kind of trying to learn and respect each other's boundaries and being able to communicate to say, listen, like I need to go in the basement for a little while, can you take care of the kids, let me kind of disconnect and just be alone, and vice versa, that he can go into this man cave and have some personal time. But also for our kids, they need their own space and their own time to kind of do some of those things. So I don't let Matt talk a lot, so I will let him talk a little bit while we're on this, but I'll let him share some thoughts.
That really wasn't fair. My name is Matt, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And I guess really, one of the biggest things that I've been practicing is creating those healthy boundaries within the confines of our house with everyone. Particularly like the kids and Jody for that instance. Making meetings on a regular basis via virtual meetings, through Zoom and different apps has kind of become the norm because we can't go to our face-to-face recovery meetings. And creating the boundaries of saying, hey kids, listen, I need an hour and 15 minutes. After that, I'm back to being 100% yours. And sitting in the meetings and creating a schedule and going to meetings regularly. Because here's the thing that I was thinking about most when we, the topic was brought into us, was that even though I'm surrounded by my family, as a person in recovery, I can still feel very isolated and alone from everybody else. So making sure that I'm taking care of myself is like one of my top priorities, because if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't take care of everybody else. Having that outside connection is vital, whether it's through the phone, whether it's through the meetings on Zoom, whether it's through different chats, but having that connection with my sponsor and people in my support group, and also my other family members, because even though, we have a family, we don't go in contact and come in touch with our other family members. But we do have big Zoom chats with our family members. I mean, we've done 2 birthdays that way. And it lifts everybody's spirits. The schedule's great. Having a set schedule for us, for the kids. And it's funny because I get up before everyone else in the house every day. I'm starting working at 8 o'clock in the morning as people are waking up, asking for food, asking for coffee, and it's interesting to be in the house and have to wear so many hats at once, but to be able to do it and maintain it and to find a balance while doing it. Because really it's all about balance. That's one of the biggest things that we struggle with is recovering people, is finding a balance, because we tend to dive head over heels into one thing, more than something else. One of the things that I got really kind of like out of control with in the beginning was like the virtual meetings, like the Zoom meetings, and and helping all these groups set them up and constantly being of service and teaching people how to use Zoom. To the point where I'd be like, I would be cutting dinner short to run and, go fulfill a service commitment when, there was plenty of other people that could have done it, so, but in finding that balance, it's really kind of, it's been a blessing in disguise, right? Because I feel like, the family dynamic has grown. I feel like our relationship has strengthened to a different level. I feel like, I know the kids better than I ever have. Because I mean, now like I can look at anybody's body language or mannerisms in the house, and I know exactly what they're thinking, how they're thinking it, what's going on, what they're about to do, and it just makes it a lot easier to get along, But yeah, I mean, boundaries and balance, and keeping that constant contact, talking to my sponsor regularly, making time to make meetings on a regular basis. And at first I was making meetings all over the place, but now I kind of have like a set schedule and I make the same meetings. I see the same people. If I don't make the meeting, I get a message on Facebook or a text message asking, why wasn't I at the meeting? It's no different than, going to meetings, in the world, like physically, but it's really been a blessing, really, in disguise.
And I guess one thing that I would say too is I know that, not everyone also has the privilege to be quarantined with someone else. So I think that's something else that we try to practice is making sure that we're checking on our friends, making calls to people, setting up like Zoom game night, things like that, because it's not just about us, being part of a recovery community. It's about the people that have, that are a part of our lives, not just, us and being here, but again, we just continuously talk about balance. And I guess if anyone's struggling, that would probably be my biggest suggestion. One is give yourself a break. This is a difficult time for anyone, let alone, like I said, those of us that are struggling with mental health or addiction. Give yourself a break. This is not an easy thing to kind of plow through, but also kind of find out what works best for you and what doesn't. Some things that I used to do before, I had to adjust. And for me, change is extremely difficult. And like, I feel like every day things are changing a little bit, and just allowing myself to have some flexibility and not trying always to control the outcomes of things has alleviated a lot of stress for me. Because again, like there's a lot of things that are going on that we just have no control over, and which is, I think, scary. And I think that that's something that we kind of own and talk about, is just that there's a lot of fear and unknown in all of this. But one thing that I think that we know is that, we still have a support network. We just have to utilize it and find it and do it in a different manner than we did before. And that just it's, I read an article about just people in recovery, and that we're probably the most primed people to handle crisis situations like this, because we've learned how to be adaptable. We've learned how to be flexible. We've learned how, like, we've survived like our own pandemics when we're getting high. So, we've learned to kind of, adjust to things as they occur, but it's still challenging, and it doesn't make it easy. So again, if there are people that are struggling with balance, give yourself a break, try different things. I think too, that the other thing is that, there's a lot of stuff, like before this happened, like I'm a busy person, sometimes too busy, too busy to like slow down. Sitting down and having dinner with my family sometimes was difficult, because it's, I go to work, I come home from work, we cook dinner, we go to meetings, we do this, we do that. It's really easy to get busy at home too. I didn't think that that would happen, but it's still hard to like sit still and be engaged in relationships. This kind of situation, it's easy for me to say, okay, well, I'm going to get up, I'm going to work out, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do yard work. Well, I don't do yard work, but that was just an example. I'm going to clean the house, I'm going to do laundry, the laundry that never gets done. I mean, we've been home for months and I don't think I've ever finished the laundry, but I just say that to say, like, it's really easy to be busy too. And I mean, I just think that we just keep going back to just balance and communication, and just some personal self-care that I know that we'll hear about later. But, not only being aware of myself, being aware of others inside and outside of my home, and trying to do some things different. Zoom meetings are weird. It's weird here to sit here and like see myself talking. It's just different. But I know that I have to adapt, because this is just kind of where we are, and I want to be healthy and well, and I want other people in my life to be healthy and well. So we live by example, and we just go with the flow and like, try to make the best of a difficult situation in spite of everything. Meditation, prayer, meetings, family time, personal time, all of that stuff is just really, really important. And things like this, like educating the community. Because like I said, it's not just about us. Isolation's not a normal human component that's healthy and safe. So all of us kind of being in this place together, it really crosses the boundaries to me, just not even about addiction and about mental health. It's about humanity right now, and all of us in society trying to, work through this difficult time. But we persevere, and we'll get to the other side of it.
I can't imagine not being in recovery and going through this, because we have such a network that we can reach out to for support on a consistent basis. It's funny, like in the beginning when, when everyone was quarantined and the social distancing thing happened and the stay-at-home order was put into place, I remember being, in these meetings on Zoom with up to 1,000 people in them that were all there for the same reason that I was there. And I couldn't imagine what it's like for the people that don't have that kind of support network. Because I mean, it's just it's an empowering thing to know that you're never alone, no matter what it is you're going through, because there's an entire community of people that think, act just like you. You know, and I just I'm just gonna keep saying, like, I've really, you know, been blessed through this process because of being a person in recovery.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing too, just being on meetings with people all over the world. I mean, it's not just about recovery or mental health. It's about just humanity, that we all have something to connect to the same way that we do with recovery. So we're blessed. Yeah. I'm quarantined with the best people. So I feel lucky. My kids are the best people. That's all we have.
Jody. Thank you, Jody and Matt. I appreciate you sharing. As somebody that lives with obviously I live with my family, and it's the same thing here. You know, I think that what we've learned is that everybody, like, you always think that your house, your home is your safe place, but when you're quarantined with everybody at one time, it's like it takes it to a whole other level. And so you kind of have to learn that it's okay to be who you are, when you are, where you are. And I know that I have really come to cherish the bonds that make us a family through this experience. And it goes beyond recovery for me, although my recovery is very much part of my family is very much part of my recovery. So, but and that just came to my mind as I was listening to you two talk, and I appreciate you sharing your experience. Again, if anybody listening or watching has any questions for any speaker, feel free to just put them in the chat and we'll get to them. The next part of our segment is sort of switching gears a little bit and talking a little bit about recovery supports and how I guess particularly the folks that are in early recovery, how this might affect them in terms of where they are in their personal recovery. I think, at least in what I do, I've seen overdoses, you know, going up. I've seen a lot of people that have been struggling with their stability more so than usual. And so I'm going to introduce Jay and Becca, two people that have worked in the trenches for a long time. And they're going to talk a little bit about treatment and recovery support services and sort of how COVID-19 has been the ripple effect through the recovering community. So Jay and Becca, have at it.
So, hi, I'm Becca Moyer, and I'm a woman in long-term recovery. And I also have worked in the behavioral health field for some time. And I've spent a lot of time dealing with warm handoff, harm reduction, recovery support, medicated assisted recovery. And I just kind of want to touch base and share a little bit about where my head was when this first started. Because for me, you know, obviously, I think it's wonderful that I have seen a lot of people be able to come together, especially those of us who have sustained recovery, to be able to come together as a community and kind of rally around one another through this time. But my concern was really for the people that were new to this or didn't know how to engage in recovery, because all of the traditional ways in which somebody would have been introduced to that were kind of set aside. And so we had to adapt and you know, develop this new way to connect and continue to branch out and continue to build a support system and continue to engage with one another. And so I just kept thinking to myself about all the new people that need those services and how are they going to get them and where are they going to get them and do people even know? And so I think that it's just important that with the quarantine and COVID-19 and who knows how long, you know, the stay-at-home orders will last for, that we continue to do our part to educate the community, and not just those in the recovery community, but those outside of the recovery community. Just the community as a whole can do so much just by simply being aware of the services that are available. whether they're helping somebody they don't know personally or helping a family member. So I do want to say that recovery support services are available, and they're vast. There's a lot of organizations, Gatehouse, Race Project, WellSpan, TW Panessa, PA Counseling. There's a lot of services that offer recovery support, and I really think that that's a useful, probably underutilized tool at this time. And anybody can use that, whether you're new in recovery or you have sustained recovery. It definitely can be a useful tool for people who are struggling to do the things that Jody and Matt talked about, which is, achieve balance and kind of navigate those new things that we have to navigate now that we're living under these circumstances. And, for people that are already engaged in services or need to get engaged in services, it's important to know that those services are still there despite the massive closures we've seen. We do have a behavioral health field who has rallied and is continuing to offer those services. I do want to mention that a big part of preventing overdoses is harm reduction. And that can mean many different things. One of the big things that I like to shout out about that is please carry Narcan. And we continue to distribute Narcan. Race Project has joined with Joining Forces, and we will now be distributing Narcan while following COVID restrictions 1 time a month. And so Narcan is available. You can contact Joining Forces and get Narcan, but carrying Narcan and knowing how to use it is a wonderful tool, both during COVID and outside of COVID. And I just think that it's important that people are aware of that. And I think that's about all I have to say on that. Jay, if you want to jump in here.
Yeah, so my name is Jay, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've also worked in the behavioral health field for some time now. And exactly, just to pretty much piggyback off of what Becca was saying is, this COVID-19 is really a big hinder for individuals new in recovery or those who have no idea that recovery even exists, and it's a struggle trying to get that information out there right now. One of the biggest challenges is individuals who are currently using. They're afraid to go to the hospital because of COVID. With the fear of being rejected. Or the fear of catching the disease itself. And then individuals who don't have access to Zoom, like don't have any technology, phones or laptops or anything. I know myself when I was using, I didn't have phone, I didn't have nothing. So, I just think back to when I was early in recovery, like if this was going on, I don't know what I would do. I wouldn't know where to go. So that's one of the biggest challenges that, the recovery community is trying to find a way around right now. But what I will say is, I'm very grateful for, the collectiveness that has come from the recovery community for building these new platforms and using the resources available to try and get word out there that resources are still here, we're still available, hospitals are still open and more receptive now than ever. I know personally, WellSpan emergency rooms and LGH emergency rooms are here, and they are willing to connect individuals who come in, not necessarily just from an overdose, but just seeking some type of relief from active addiction. They're willing to reach out, for you if you don't know any other place, which is great, because now, like Becca was saying, we're getting outside of the recovery community in general, reaching people at, like where they're at. But, I try to do my part as far as, social media, like sharing, any upcoming events or any upcoming Zoom meetings or Narcan giveaways or, events like this. I try to push it out there on all my social media accounts. And I continue to network, because that's all I can do right now, so yeah, I mean, it's really hard for the newcomer right now, and I can really empathize with that, just as hard as it is for myself, being in long-term recovery. It's still hard for me to be isolated in my home with a 9-year-old that likes to listen to trap music. I can't live my life like this. No. So, I could really relate to what Jody and Matt were sharing earlier about, finding that balance and trying to navigate these new waters that we're testing. There's just a lot of challenges going on, but the one thing I do want to say is that, as far as finding treatment, it's still here. Facilities are still open. Emergency rooms are still open, whether you have the COVID or not. And don't be afraid, to just stop in, like places like the Race Project. Yeah, the recovery center itself may be closed, but the people are still there and they're still, willing to open their doors and help you to get those services that you need. Same with Gatehouse, same with TW Canessa, same with, WellSpan. We're all here. We're all working collectively to try and find the best services possible to help people. So that's pretty much what I have.
And I just want to add to that. So yeah, if you're having difficulty accessing services, I mean, simply just calling any one of those organizations would help you kind of get headed in the right direction. I do want to say that, and I said this numerous times in the beginning, we are still here. So the treatment facilities are available. And it's really unfortunate because what we've seen is, yes, we've seen an increase in overdose deaths. And we've seen an increase in domestic violence. We've seen an increase in just the overall depravity that comes from substance use disorder and mental health issues. And I think that is in large part due to just, as Jody and Matt described, how do we navigate something like this? How do we navigate something so strange? And then you have people in isolation, which is just absolutely opposite of what you want to tell somebody that's struggling with substance use disorder or mental health disorder to do. But we do, we despite that, we have to focus on what can we do, right? So what is available to me, and all of these resources are available. MAT for people that are using that or would choose to use that as their pathway. Those services are still available. We have a team that's still running to help facilitate placements. We're still responding to overdoses. There is access to Narcan. And so just knowing that these resources are available, and we've even been able to a lot of organizations have been able to transition to a telehealth and a telemedicine format. So we've all been adapting and accommodating this so that we can still best serve the population of people that we're trying to serve. And you have these recovery specialists out there on the front lines, as Scott said, in the trenches, who have experience navigating the recovery continuum and the field, who are available. So just please know that those resources are available, and there are treatment facilities. And I think that if we are able to get that message out there, the hope is that we will not continue to see a decrease in people willing to engage in treatment, which we have seen as well. So that's really unfortunate, because we know the result of that is death. A lot of people are going to die as a result of this. So again, we go back to, what can I do and what is my perspective about the problem so that I can be a part of the solution. And that's it, Scott.
Okay. Well, thank you, Becca and Jay. I want to ask a question real quick, and anybody can jump in because I don't, and maybe you guys already talked about it and I didn't hear, but what's it like being at home, working from home?
Sorry, my kids.
You have families, you're working from home, and like the line, like, you know, because when we go to work, we come back, there's a line, you know, and you're at home then, but now everything's at home. So I'm just curious, it just popped into my head because I know everybody here and everybody has kids or families, and I know for me, it's very challenging to like not have everything turn into one thing, you know, my work, my family, and we all just kind of have to be there. I'm just curious real quick if anybody has comments about that.
I know
The
one thing
lines are
that
definitely-
I'll say. Oh, go ahead, Andrea. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Judy. The lines are definitely blurred. I don't, at least in my situation, it's always hard to kind of take off that hat and move into the next one.
One thing I'll say is it's just kind of what I try to teach my employees at work. You know, your hours are this, and you need to take a break at this time, and you have to disconnect. So, you know, for us, it's, you know, like Matt, for example, he works 8 to 5 and he takes a lunch break, and we have gym class during lunch. But, you know, we're not checking emails in the middle of the night. Unless it's an emergency, I'm not taking calls from people. It's really about setting boundaries with my employer, because I think that people can kind of take advantage of the term that you're available 24/7 now because you're home. And it's my responsibility to say, listen, you know, today I'm working 1 to 7. If you need me, email, voicemail, call between 1 to 7. The other time I'm home with my family, and try to set those boundaries. But I think that that comes down to us. That's our responsibility for self-care. It's not necessarily because other people they'll push the limits. Let's just say that if we let them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's been a learning lesson. You think you know stuff and then you end up in quarantine and it's like, wow, I didn't really know half of what I thought I did, but
Right.
That's recovery, right? Recovery is all about growth.
And then I also think it's again, it's about having those boundaries inside the house and making sure everybody knows, like, you know, this is my workspace. This is not where, you know, you're gonna bring your toys, we're gonna hang out during the day. Like when I'm working, I need to be working, right?
Yeah.
So making sure that those boundaries are clear with everyone else in the house is, I mean, for me, it's been vital in my success for work. But then also being able to detach throughout that time frame to re-enter back into, you know, Family Guy, for lack of a better term, Family Guy, is
Literally.
important as well, you know. But I think the biggest thing is making sure that everybody in the house understands, like, listen, when I'm working, I need to be working. Unless it's an absolute emergency, I'm working.
Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate that. That kind of is a nice segue into our next presenter, who I personally could listen to for a long time. I think she's very wise and has a lot of wisdom to impart on people who want to listen. And I've learned quite a bit from Marilyn. And she's going to discuss a little bit about some recovery-oriented self-care strategies. And so I'm very pleased to introduce Marilyn Stein.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you everyone for having me. I'm just so honored and so touched, particularly at this difficult time. Thank you so very much, and thank you for all that you do, everybody who's listening. And so I keep thinking about that old Grateful Dead song, because I'm much older than a lot of you, that, you know, what a long, strange trip it's been since mid-March. It just seems like time has stretched or stopped. And I know that it's been challenging for everybody in whole new different ways. And the one thing I want to say about self-care, and I just have a sense of that even as we're speaking kind of virtually or remotely here, is that it really challenges our sense of altruism. And altruism is that thing that helps us want to be helpers, to reach out and offer our assistance because assistance has been offered to us. And when our altruism is interrupted, it kind of shifts how we see ourselves, and it shifts how we see the world in really kind of significant ways. And at this time, when our ability to be helpers, when that's what we so want to do, is challenged, we also then have a demand for a real requirement for self-care. And I want to make the case for all of you that self-care is not this big extra thing that I'm going to do a 5-mile run at the end of the day, or I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. I'm not sure at this difficult time that we can carve out the extra that requires. So I'm here to support the idea that your self-care is really available to you with every exhale. And I want you to think about the power that comes with every exhale for a lot of reasons that have to do with our very physiology. And I also want to stress with every exhale to remind yourself that self-care is not dessert at the end of a meal, but rather it's the requirement that will make every meal possible and enjoyable. And I've talked about boundaries for a million years. And one of the things for sure that I know is for all of us, this is a time where our boundaries are being put to the test. And our lesson in this will be to kind of look back at this period and know my boundaries were tested. This was the lesson. And I have a lot of evidence that I did really well. And so that's just an important consideration with this whole idea of self-care at a stressful time. And that is, it's not an option, it's really a requirement. And that requirement is just simply asking you to remember the power of your exhale. It's so very important. Now, Chris, you were going to bring up, I have a little itty bitty bit of a PowerPoint because I want to speak about the autonomic nervous system. It's a part of our physiology. There's some big words that I boiled down here, but the autonomic nervous system is the part of our brain that responds to and protects us in times of an emergency. And so when there's an emergency, our autonomic nervous system is kind of always there to gather the resources so that we can fight against whatever is coming our way. This is sort of mediated, taken care of by the sympathetic nervous system, which says there's danger and I'm going to prepare you for that danger. And what's really important to know is that it doesn't just respond, the sympathetic nervous system doesn't just respond to big events in our lives, but it responds to those little increases in stress as well. And so when we feel increased stress because we're home in ways that we were never home before, or we can't leave home, or we're nervous about so many new things, our sympathetic nervous system is sort of gearing up, preparing us to fight back. And because this is something that isn't just the story of stress that we tell ourselves and then share with our friends or our coworkers or our significant other, it is that this is our physiological manifestation of what we're absorbing in our environment. That's so important to know, that this response physiologically isn't something we're just telling about or talking about. It's something that our bodies are responding to. And with that kind of preparation for an emergency, the symptoms of that is this sort of low level, behind the scenes physical disruption. So maybe some of you might be feeling things like an upset tummy, or you feel like your heart's racing from time to time, or maybe you feel like your shoulders are stressed and kind of being a turtleneck right around your ears, you know how when your shoulders rise, or maybe you're not quite digesting the way you want to. Or one of the things I've heard a lot lately is my dreams are so weird at night. They had not been so kind of unusual or disruptive to me, but now all of a sudden my dreams are kind of problematic. And all of that comes from our sort of response to that which is troubling us, because that sympathetic nervous system is consider it the gas pedal that protects us, and we need that, but we don't need it on all the time. And so the balance to that sympathetic nervous system is something called the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the part of our autonomic nervous system that helps us calm down, and it soothes us. And the most important takeaway from all of this stuff is to remember that we activate our calming and soothing system with every exhale that we kind of offer. And I just want you to create this awareness on a very regular basis that I breathe in and I let it go. And that in that letting go, we are turning off that system that is constantly in the preparation stage of preventing us from being attacked. But we don't need it on all the time. Chris, you want to just advance for me? So something about that pilot light is even negative self-talk. You know that loop sometimes that plays in the back of our thinking that says, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not prepared enough, I should have done whatever, why didn't I do that? All of those things, all of that negative self-talk is very, very real and very, very much an attack to our physiology. And our physiology responds to just that kind of message. And again, the one thing that helps us kind of slow down or silence that loop that might keep playing in the back of our thinking is this idea of just an exhale. And we're going to get back to that, something that's really important that I want to say about that. But just again, the takeaway from all of this is our heart rate slows with an out breath. Our systems relax, our physiological systems from our breathing and our heart rate to our digestion relaxes, slows down with each and every out breath. And I hope that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about any of that? Because that's the beauty of our autonomic nervous system. It is always working to protect us, and it is always working to soothe us. And so I just want to say a word about a book called Atomic Habits. It's written by a very tall person named James Clear, and he talks about the fact that when we are stressed and our physiology is responding to all of these new things, it's not the time to make really big, giant, sweeping changes. This isn't the time to say, I'm going to start working out and think that you're going to go to the gym and, take care of things in a really big way, because we just can't. And so the suggestion here is just take really small bites. And those really small bites begin with just an exhale. And so I want to ask you to join with me in one of my favorite self-care practices. It can be offered to anyone. It can be engaged in at almost any time of the day. When I am nervous, when I am starting to feel my symptoms of stress build, it is something that I always do. So I want to invite everyone to participate in something that is a grounding exercise. I'll talk about that. And it's called Hand to Heart. So as you're preparing to participate along with me, what I want to ask you to do, if you can, is just push back from wherever you're sitting so that you can sit up straight, put your feet flat on the floor. I can see your feet. No, I can't, but just imagine if I could. So your feet getting grounded. When we are grounded, one of the terms that I love for this is called earthing. When we're connecting with the earth, even when it's the floor beneath us, we have a sense of being supported, that the floor, the earth is pushing up to offer us its support. And so being grounded helps us stay right here and right now. We know that when we're anxious or even having a panic attack, that we tend to fall into either the worry of what's been, which we cannot change, we have no power over what's been whatsoever, or concern about what's coming in the future. And we really can't mandate that either. And so our real point of power is being grounded in the here and now. And so if your feet are flat on the floor and you can sort of feel a connection with your seat in your chair, maybe your back against the back of your chair. Find that maybe the tops of your hands can rest on your knees. And in this moment, with the support of the ground beneath you, I want you to take a really deep breath in. And I want you to exhale for an even longer period. We really engage in all of the physiological opportunities to soothe ourselves when our exhale is longer than our inhale. If you think about frightened, we know that it's often of an intake of air. And so soothing and relaxing comes with the out breath. And so in and even longer that exhale. Roll your shoulders down your back and take your right hand, if you will, and place it on your heart. Oh, I love that feeling. What you should be feeling as your hand connects with your heart is the gentle pressure your hand is making, the warmth that may radiate from your hand, the beauty of feeling the rhythm of your own heartbeat, knowing that it, more than almost anything, sustains who you are. And just for a moment, breathe in the natural rhythm of your heartbeat. Allow it to connect with your hand in a way that, without question, tells you that you are alive. Feel your heartbeat and know it is your power as you continue to breathe in, feeling your belly move, and then out. Feel the rising of your heart into your hand as your chest increases, and know that with every exhale, you're soothing yourself with just your breath. And so take another breath and kind of come back to the room, maybe get comfortable, wiggle your toes just the littlest bit, and tell me something about, at least a few of you, tell me something about how that felt. There has to be a thought from someone about how that felt.
Well, I'll start, Marilyn. I felt like I could have that. I wanted to do that more and less Zooming.
I know, and what's amazing though
present.
is that it's possible that we can actually do both. And what I love about even Zoom, and I do try to picture this, even if it might not actually be possible, is that when I'm managing and offering a long exhale, it's what I'm giving to everyone else. And as you're exhaling, I'm going to eventually be sharing in that exhale as well. So that shared mutuality of breathing in and breathing out is an opportunity to be together, even if that seems kind of like a stretch. It actually isn't. And so there's power that we can share even just in that moment. And I like the idea of that. And so I guess I don't want to take up a ton of your time. I know that there's so many things that you want to be talking about. But I do just want to remind you that self-care is a small bite and not a big new undertaking that we'll chastise ourselves for later because we didn't do it right, or we didn't do it enough, or we didn't do it long enough, or something of a critical nature. Our self-care has to be not dessert, but an everyday serving of that which serves us, because every single one of us are entitled to it. It's not something you earn. It's just something you get to have. I don't know, questions, comments, thoughts, anything? Aw, everyone's so quiet. And you know, here's my last, Matt, I was thinking as you were talking and that you have your work time and then you have your family time. And I was thinking that maybe you can tell your children or somehow color code your hats. So if you have a white hat on, then like that's my work time. And let your kids know if you have a different color hat on, now we can engage because I'm doing my at-home thing. And so all of the self-care things, I think that sometimes we think we have to engage in are so much beyond us, but they don't have to be. My takeaway for everyone today is to know the power of your own exhale. It sustains you and it supports all of us as well. I can't thank all of you enough for the work you do and the caring that you offer the world, because in caring, we are offering healing. And I offer you the same healing in return. So thank you again so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. My email, I thought I put my email somewhere on my PowerPoint, but if anyone's inclined to want other self-care stuff or whatever, my email is just my name, marilynstein@aol.com. Don't hesitate to contact me. I wish you all well. Thank you again for having me. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's me. So please don't hesitate. Thank you so much. Be well. So wonderful to be a part of this. Thanks.
Thank you, Marilyn. I really appreciate you being part of it. And also it's another nice segue because April is here, and I'm very glad that April's here. April, are you here? I think you are. I can't see you right now. But...
I am here.
Hi, April. Those of you that know Apes of the State, this is April Hartman, and I don't know, April, if you're going to play or if you'd like to say if you have any thoughts that you want to contribute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Good. Excellent. Well, then I'm going to turn it over to you. Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Hey, everybody. It's really good to see all of y'all's faces. First off, I just want to say thanks for having me on. And I'm seeing all my friends from Raise on here from the Recovery Alliance. I miss seeing y'all all face to face every week. So it's really good to see you all on here. I just want to talk a little bit about what self-care looks like for me as a musician in recovery. So I'm coming up on 6 years clean now. June 2nd will be my clean date that I'm coming up on, and it looks like I'm going to celebrate it in quarantine. Last year, this time I was celebrating 5 years clean, and I threw myself a big concert. So it'll look very different, but I have a feeling that it will be just as fulfilling. My story with recovery started back in 2014, and a large part of my recovery has always been playing music. In the early days, what that looked like was me playing guitar alone in my house. And coming up on 6 years later, it looks a lot like that right now too, which is, not ideal, but it is what it is. So I started playing music when I got clean, and it became like a self-care coping mechanism type thing for me to deal with the emotions that I was experiencing in early recovery, and there sure are a lot of them. So I would pick up my guitar and I'd play. And I would, just by myself, because I was scared to play in front of people. And also I didn't think I was good enough for anything like that yet. And it was really just a thing I did for me. And over the years, it evolved into my entire career at this point. So it became a bigger monster than I had intended. And it also, but in doing that, it became less for me. So during quarantine, it's actually been a really nice way to get back to music just being a me thing that I do because it makes me feel good. I don't have to worry about the pressure of the next gig, of performing in front of people. I don't really have to worry about writing the next hit song for my fans. I don't have the pressure of planning the next tour. I could just sit down with my guitar and play. So that's actually been really nice. And I've been utilizing the opportunity to get back to those roots of me just playing my guitar, screaming my head off just to feel okay. Just last night, I went out in my garage because I had some extra energy and I just played guitar for a couple hours and it felt amazing. So I urge anybody that's struggling with their recovery at this time to just find something, any little hobby that could be their self-care. I always, when I talk about my recovery in general, everything to me was finding a hobby or some kind of thing that I used to love before I fell into my addiction. So for me, it was music. I always wanted to play music when I was a kid. I never thought I'd be good enough at it. And in my recovery, I learned that I didn't have to do things because I'd be good at them. I just had to do them because they felt good. So whatever it is that makes you feel good, now is the time to do it and not worry about what anybody else thinks. Because guess what? nobody's going to see you doing it anyway. You're stuck in your house. So I'm just going to play some songs for y'all. Oh, and I also want to say that we still do have our Thursday night jam that we usually do at Ray's going, but it's over Zoom now. So if anybody wants to tune in on that or join in, it's on Zoom on Thursdays from 5 to 7. We meet, the link is on the Second Chance to Play page. So we've adapted to the digital age with that as well. We're still getting together, playing music together. Yeah. So this first song I'm going to do is a song called Time that I wrote around a year or two ago. And it like weirdly, it fits with the times very well. It's a hopeful song. I wanted to play hopeful songs on this little Zoom chat just because recovery related hopeful songs, because I think everybody needs a little bit of hope right now. So I'm just going to do this one for y'all, and then I'll do a couple others and then we'll call it. So. In front of the other when those hard days just seem to last forever, because sometimes moving forwards means leaving things behind. And all we know, the only thing that is certain, is that everything we love and know may one day be forgotten. And they might stare and marvel at this beautiful design, or look for answers in the things we leave behind. But we keep moving forwards, even though there is no way of knowing what direction we are facing. And over, up, and onwards, we've made it all these years, so what's another night? Dear Facebook feed, my anxiety is eating me again, and there are miles between me and all my friends, and space between me and the faces on this screen is made of numbers that I'll never understand. Dear friends of mine, my fears can feel so real sometimes. It's like I'm paralyzed, like I am frozen in a moment. But with one deep breath, that moment passes by, and it reminds me how it feels to be alive. And all I know is what I thought I knew for certain just became a collection of the things I've left behind. So now I stand strong as I laugh in awe and wonder at the beauty and uncertainty of life. I keep moving forwards, even though there is no way of knowing what direction I'm facing. And over, up, and onwards, I've made it all these years, so what's another night? Time keeps moving forwards, even though there is no way of knowing what direction we are facing. And over, up, and onwards, we've made it all these years, so what's another night? Thank you. So yeah, that song talks a little bit about isolation, and about sometimes feeling like you could be yelling into the void on the internet. And during this this experience, I've actually, I've struggled on and off with social media as a form of self-care. Usually I think it's really bad for my mental state to be on social media, but during this, I think I've seen the opposite of that. For once, I think that social media might be one of the things that's holding people together, and even things like this, Zoom. There are ways for people to connect with each other over when we physically can't be together. So that's actually a pretty cool thing. And sometimes it's just how you feel about it. Your mental state has a lot to do with how you'll perceive basically everything, but how you'll perceive. For me, it's how I perceive social media and things like that. So this next song I'm gonna do is called Timeline. It's a song I wrote early in my recovery. I talk about my bottom in it. Talk about the day I decided to go seek treatment and get clean. So it's called Timeline. 2 years ago, I was sitting on a tiny blue couch in the basement apartment of a college town. The tears rolled out as I started to break down. 'Cause I was lost and I was scared. I was graduating school, and for the first time in my life, I felt so unprepared with no idea what direction I was heading to. And I was trying not to lose my mind. Yeah, I was trying not to lose my mind. One year ago, I was sitting on the edge of the bed at my sister's house in Edison. I pulled the needle out as I started to break down. 'Cause I was certain, I was scared. I tried to make it on my own, and I found out that I was just so ill prepared, and that was how I learned that in order to be fixed, I had to be broken first. And I was trying not to lose my mind. Yeah, I was trying to stop getting high. Months ago, I met a girl with pretty brown eyes. She looked at me and she said, "I want you for mine." It made me happier than I'd been in a long time. And when I found her, I was scared. Love never seems to come when I'm prepared, and I want to write her a song. But every time I try, the words, they never seem to come out right. And I'm just trying not to lose my mind. But she makes me lose my goddamn mind. So I guess to a varying degree, we're all losing our minds at one point or another during this. And, the chorus of that song kind of just speaks to no matter what you do in life, there's going to be things that are going to make you feel like you're losing your mind. But I think at the end of this, we will come out of it having grown and become better people than we were before. And for me, the middle line where I talk about, in order to be fixed, I had to be broken first. So for me to achieve my true potential in life, I really had to have that experience where I was completely broken down, where I hit my bottom. And for us, I feel like this is almost like a societal bottom. Like, in order for society to progress and advance, maybe we needed to go through something like this. And I hope we all come out of it better people, and we come out of it a better world than we went into. Okay, I'm gonna do probably just one more song. This will probably bring me right up to the end. I wanted to do this old classic on the banjo. It's an old traditional folk song. I usually copy the Peter Seeger version, but this is a song that usually I play with my Raise music group together when we play. So I'm going to do that. It's called Down by the Riverside. It's about leaving all your problems down by the riverside. So it's an old war tune. I'm going to do the first verse how it traditionally is sung, and then I'm going to just ad lib different stuff into it. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Said I ain't gonna study war no more. No, I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. No, I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Yeehaw. Gonna lay down that bottle and can down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down that bottle and can down by the riverside. Said I ain't gonna be getting drunk no more. No, I ain't 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 getting drunk no more. I'm gonna lay down that bottle of pills down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down that bottle of pills down by the riverside. Said I ain't gonna be popping pills no more. No, I ain't 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 robbing stuff no more. No, I don't live like that no more. All right, before I do this last verse, I just want to talk a little bit about the power of repetition and positive affirmations. So positive affirmations are something I learned about way back when I was in rehab as a form of self-care. And it's the idea that if like you tell yourself you're good enough, eventually you will be over time. Or if you tell yourself you're beautiful in the mirror every day, you'll start to change the way you see yourself. Our perception is how we view our reality. So the first step into thinking better is to tell yourself those things in your head. Switch those negative thoughts to positive ones. And I found that if you say them out loud, they're even better. So that's why I sing this song. And that's why it's so repetitive. Singing is something that helps me feel good every day. Even when I was bad at it, it helped me feel good. So I urge everybody, if you're sitting at home right now watching this, to sing the last verse along with me. I promise it'll make you feel good. It'll make you smile, even if you feel silly doing it. We're gonna lay down our bottle, whatever's in it, our bottle of booze. We're gonna lay down our bag of drugs, our shopping bags if you're addicted to shopping, whatever it is. We're gonna lay down our bottle and bags and we're not getting high no more and we're happy about it. I'm gonna lay down my bottle and bag down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my bottle and bag down by the riverside. Said I ain't gonna be getting high no more. No, I ain't 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 getting high no more. Great job. guys so much for having me on here. I don't have any other songs planned, so I hope it's okay if I end just like 2 minutes shy of 7:15. But I'm sure you have something great planned for afterwards. And once again, thank y'all so much for having me on here. I hope that it helped you smile a little bit, even if you felt silly singing. And I miss all of you. I hope to see y'all again sometime soon. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, April. Appreciate your time. We have a little segment on parenting, which is always a challenge. And Andrea and Melinda are going to have a conversation about parenting challenges. And it says here on my cheat sheet, if it's okay that your kids are annoying you. So I hope so, because anyway. Anyway, Andrea and Melinda.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. My name's Melinda and I'm a woman in long-term recovery, and I want to talk about parenting and coping skills. Yeah. So in the beginning of COVID, I was like kind of in denial. The first couple of days, it felt like it was pretty cool to stay at home and not have to go anywhere. But then after a while, I was like in denial, like how long is this going to go on? Then I got to the point where I'm looking around and I'm like, this house is a freaking prison. But then when I thought about that, I was like, yeah, it is like a prison. And you know what? How did I handle myself when I was in prison? And that's kind of how I started dealing with it. You know, Jody hit the nail on the head when she said that we are highly adaptable people, because we truly are.
Mm-hmm.
We are the most resilient and adaptable people that I've ever met in my life, and we can literally form ourselves to almost any situation. Some of the things that I've been doing to take care of myself is, you know, finding a hobby. I have found out recently that I know how to crochet, and I'm actually really good at it. So I've been making blankets for everyone. Another thing that you can do is journaling, writing down your thoughts and the different feelings that you're experiencing, because there's going to be 100 different ones sometimes inside of a minute. And that's okay, because we're all going through that. It's important to read, you know, recovery-oriented literature, joining, you know, the 12-step meetings, making phone calls instead of texts. You know, sometimes it's nice to get back into that, because, you know, in this day and age, we do a lot of chatting and texting, but there isn't a lot of talking on an actual phone call. And I feel like that's important because it's more personal. You know, for such a highly socialized society, we don't actually do a whole lot of socializing in that type of way. Could exercise. I'm not really into that, but you can do it. You know, just taking those moments to yourself, going through your stuff and sorting through things that you aren't going to wear anymore, or things that you don't want to use, all your junk stuff, doing things like that. I did that the other week, but I went a little bit too crazy. I went through my entire closet and cleared out everything that I wasn't wearing. Well, right now it's not summer, so I threw out all my summer clothes. Now it's getting warm out, and I'm like, what the heck am I going to wear? So, you know, you just want to be mindful that sometimes we can still do things in excess. It's doing whatever you can to stay in the moment and just stay in the moment. It's not always a bad thing to sit with yourself. You know, sometimes you need to sit in the moment and sit with yourself, because in reality, a lot of times we still don't know who we are. And taking these moments to find out who you are, like, what do you like? What do you want to do? What are you good at? You know, trying different hobbies, cooking different things, just utilizing this time the best that you can, and remembering that you're not alone going through it. What do you think?
Definitely. I agree with all of those things. I don't know if you, Melinda, had touched base on it. And well, I guess I should probably introduce myself as well. I'm Andrea. I am also a woman in long-term recovery. And I guess yeah, just everything that everyone's been saying, I don't think that we could say it enough. And to me, it really reigns true, the fact that, you know, you can have 6 or 7 different people saying the same things. It's just that confirmation. You know, during this time, being a parent in recovery, being a caregiver to someone who's in recovery, being a spouse to someone who's in recovery, is just, they have their own challenges, but just like everything else has changed in the last, you know, 6 or 7 weeks, with the pandemic reaching us. It just really changes things. And I don't know if you touch base on like reading your recovery literature daily, reaching out to a mentor or a sponsor or someone who can support you in your journey in recovery, getting online to those Zoom meetings or 12-step meetings or Celebrate Recovery, just connecting in any way possible, I think is really the hallmark and like the caveat, what we really need to be driving home at this point in time. I heard Matt say also, like, we're never alone. And we are best suited for all of this, just like Jody said as well. I think I've been social distancing since high school, but now I kind of have to, I like to do it more on my own terms. But yeah, I don't think we have a lot of time here, and some of the material was also covered before with everyone who spoke before us, and I really just want to say thank you everyone for carving out the time in your evenings to be here for this very, very important conversation about, you know, the face of what recovery has changed, and having this conversation about this, just how to keep ourselves healthy while we help the community stay healthy as well, because substance use disorder is definitely a community health issue. And all of us here in different facets have definitely touched on it, have been in the front lines, in the trenches, or still are. So the things that I guess I wanted to say, just to, before I forget, I have my little Post-it note here that everyone's already been saying is, number one, give yourself a break. Whatever that may be. It does also mean adhering to your break schedule for when you were at work, but also just giving yourself a break to say, like, you know what, I don't need to wash the dishes right now. Like, I can do that a little bit later on, or after you've spent time with your children, saying, okay, now I need a couple minutes, a couple hours to myself. Locking the bathroom door so that your kids don't come in with you. Just give yourself the break. The other thing I want to say is trusting your gut, giving yourself that space to just feel what it is that you feel, and it's okay. And like Scott was saying when he introduced us, like, my kids are annoying. And I really do commend anyone who, you know, has dug deep into themselves and kind of found those new parenting skills. And some people just really came into the pandemic with more of a toolbox than others. And being at home with my family is wonderful. I really do enjoy being here with them, but it's not all sunshine and roses. And I think that's probably why I was selected to talk on this particular topic, because it's just not. My spouse is also in recovery, and they're not, they don't have quite as much time as I do. So they have a little bit more different challenges, like they're very different challenges that they have. So just being mindful that, like, okay, if I can see this in him and he looks like he needs to get to a meeting, or if I'm going to suggest to him, like, hey, when was the last time that you called your sponsor? It's probably because I need to do those things as well. My third point is to pick your battles when it comes down to making sure the kids get into their Zoom meetings, getting onto your calls, being productive, prepping dinner, doing the laundry, all of those wonderful hats that we wear, just to pick your battles. There's some days when I'm super productive at work, and all of those 8 hours is just boom, 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 boom. And there's other days when I barely log on, and I just make sure that my kids get into the meetings that they're supposed to be in, and they're doing their homework and really sitting there. Like, I can't recall when was the last time I've even been able to sit with my children and help them do their homework. Like they've either been in daycare or after school programs. I've been working. Years ago when I was in active addiction, like I don't think I've ever had time before now to sit down and help them with homework, or to show them, like, I like fractions. I didn't even know that. I was like, I don't think I can help you with this, bro, but what, mixed numbers, improper fractions, we're good. So yes, there are some things that just won't get done during your day, but that's all right. Like, we just take it one day at a time, one task at a time, one moment at a time. I have 3 kids, and they're in different levels of school, in 2 different school districts. And I really didn't want to be a teacher. Like, I like helping people, but not in that way. But like I said, this time is really teaching us things that we now know about ourselves. Like, I'm actually doing all right as like a stay-at-home mom, which is not ever something that I wanted to do, because I just didn't think that I had enough patience for. I really didn't think that I had like the capacity in my heart to just like give it my all. But when I take the same energy that I am giving to the recovery community and to the clients and the families and the individuals that we serve, and I internalize it, and I just kind of turn it around and give it to myself and my family, like it's powerful. It's wonderful. And the last thing that I have to say before I get off task is the power of just saying no, setting those boundaries, saying, no, I can't do that for you right now. No, I cannot do all your math homework for you. No, I can't talk to you because I'm actually on the toilet right now. Just saying no and understanding that no is a complete sentence. It needs no explanation, and it's okay. That's it. Yeah, setting those boundaries. And I think those are my tips and strategies, things that I found just in connecting with my support group, things that have come up a lot, and really just having someone that you can honestly vent to, not sugarcoating anything.
Absolutely.
That's what I think is going to be the most important in this time. I think that's it.
I just want to add one thing though. It's okay to feel crazy at times. You know, you're not a bad parent if you have to leave the room, especially those in recovery with infants. You know, if you're having a bad day and your baby is crying, you are not a bad parent if you have to put that baby in his crib and walk out of the room for a little bit. There is nothing wrong with that. None of us are perfect. You know, we all have our different feelings, and sometimes you have to leave the room because sometimes our kids drive us crazy. They are human beings with their own personalities that start at a very young age. That's all I want to say about that. Because my kid, I'm telling you right now, my kid's been driving me nuts. You know, he's 15 years old and he really thinks he's something. And I'm just thankful for myself that I'm raising him, you know, as a 15-year-old being in recovery, where I have more tools and spiritual principles to handle him, because it gets real sometimes. And you know what? That's okay.
I think
Amen, sister, right? Yes. 14-year-old girl, not me, but in the house.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I've learned that, Melinda. I have learned that I have expressed to my daughter that I am not perfect. I'm a parent. I'm an old guy, right? But I am a living, feeling, emotional being, and I need to leave you right now. Yeah. So I was sitting here thinking as soon as you started talking about not being perfect, and yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you, Andrea. I know we all share the same experience in that we try to do the best we can by our kids. And I think just like in recovery, when we have to be authentic and where we're at, that's important too with our kids. Our kids need to see us being authentic too, even if we're not feeling, plus 10 that day. So Becca and James are gonna, James, who I have not heard from yet, so they're gonna discuss some community care practices and yeah, so if you two want to just take it away.
Well, good
What an
evening.
introduction, I know, but
Take it away, James.
My name is James. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've sat here tonight and listened to a lot of ways that we can take care of ourselves, and different strategies and different tools. And my recovery has been all about gathering and adapting and using different tools. Melinda and right before us and Andrea talked about how we're in the house now a lot, and if you're in the house with the kids, you kind of realize just how needy they are. And one thing that I've noticed, because I work in the behavioral health field also, is that the clients that I work with have become really needy, and maybe not any more than they ever were, but maybe I'm noticing it a little bit more. And so even in the field here, we've kind of had to adapt to how we respond and what we can offer. And I know the recovery community has done that also. And I was just talking with Becca last week, and we were talking about some of the things that I've been seeing, because I also oversee a 60-bed recovery house organization. And so I have a lot of residents, and right now they're kind of stuck, and nobody's going to meetings, and everybody's stuck, looking at their phone, going to Zoom meetings, and the treatment centers haven't stopped working. So we're getting new residents in, and on a typical person will, once they come into our house, will be asked to do 90 meetings in 90 days, and that gives them an opportunity to go out and meet people if they don't know, and to get phone numbers and establish to start establishing this base. And they haven't had that opportunity. And so I was asking Becca if she had any resources, and actually one of the 12-step fellowships had recognized that problem also, and on their own had created a list of people who were willing to break their anonymity, step out and put their name on a list for individuals who that needed phone numbers, that weren't able to collect those by actually being in person at meetings. And and that's one way the recovery community has responded to these challenges that we've come up against here. And I would encourage anybody that's watching this, that's in recovery themselves, is to reach out, because there are a lot of people in recovery houses and in early recovery, or even seeking recovery, that aren't able to walk into a meeting. But keep your eyes open and make yourself available. Break your anonymity. I think at this point, we might have to, step outside of what we normally would do. I come up. I have a lot of residents. The Zoom meetings are different than anything that they've ever experienced before, and if just like everybody else, they don't like change, and so. And they're like, we don't like the Zoom meetings. And I say, well, listen, you know what? This may not be our tool of choice. If we're going to hang a picture, our tool of choice might be a hammer for most of us, we hope. But if the hammer's not available, we still have to hang the picture. So we're going to make do, right? And so we get creative and we find different things to use as a hammer to get the job done. And so that's kind of what this Zoom has done for recovery is, you know, it's not our tool of choice, but we still have a job to do. And so, you know, we have to use what we got. And so we've had to be creative in how we can be of service, and how be creative in how we're going to be involved and engaged. So, you know, and another thing that we had talked about, and I'm taking up all this time and she's just sitting here. But you know, we're lucky in the Lancaster community where we have a lot of resources.
Mhm.
You know, we do have the RAISE project. We've got our outpatient facilities and our hospitals, and every single one of them has certified recovery specialists that work inside of them. Most, if not all, of those CRSs you can access free, or your insurance will cover it. And so, you know, it may not be, you know, the CRSs have been around for quite a while now, but I know that people haven't utilized them, I think, to their fullest extent. And so if you're seeing somebody struggle, if you're struggling, you know, point them out. You know, we're here. I haven't missed a day. You know, I've been in the office every single day. And so, you know, we're here, we're available. And yeah.
Yeah. I'm here too. I'm Becca again. And I'm a woman in long-term recovery, and I'm also a professional in this field, behavioral health field. And I just want to say about this topic. So we're talking about community care practices, and I think it's really important the language that we use when we speak. And so that phrase is all encompassing, right? So it's community care. So whether you are a person in long-term recovery, a person within the recovery community, a person new to recovery, or just a person that's not in recovery from substance use disorder or mental health issues, you can be a part of the solution when we talk about the issues and challenges that we're facing during COVID. And that's sort of what we want to talk about in this segment, is just how can I facilitate community care practices? How can I be a part of that? Well, maybe I'm not equipped. Maybe I don't do this. Maybe I can't do that. And this is pretty much a call to action that anybody can be a part of that solution when we talk about how we can help one another through this crisis. So even if a person is not struggling with substance use disorder or some sort of mental health issue, this is a seriously stressful time for everyone. So just simply being present enough to step outside of yourself and reach out to your community members, your neighbor, the 80-year-old woman that needs groceries, all of those things are going to allow us to continue to enrich the community in which we live. And then in speaking to the recovery community itself, and people that are aware of the recovery community, whether they're in recovery or not, you know, it is so important that you take this time to educate yourself on what resources are available, because that is one way in which we can be of service. And like James said, this has been a really important time for us in the recovery community, because man, it's awesome. We have rallied to the occasion. And I've often seen the recovery community do this. We are a resilient bunch, but we still want to be present in our community as a whole. So we need to take that responsibility as well to check in with our neighbors, our friends, our family members. And we have those unique skills that a program of recovery has given us to be able to approach that with integrity and grace and love and compassion. Patience. And so, you know, that's what we're talking about when we talk about facilitating community care practices. So, you know, just taking the effort to make ourselves aware of the resources. What is a certified recovery specialist? Let me look this up. Most of us have Google. So, you know, I would just encourage you to use that and to Google something other than like the next Uber Eats order that you're going to get. maybe Google which treatment centers are open for detox. What is detox? Where can I send somebody? Where can I refer to somebody? And just a simple, how are you? Like a genuine how are you when you're speaking to someone can do a lot and mean a lot to somebody that's been struggling with isolation and joblessness, homelessness, being without food, making ourselves aware of the food banks. I mean, we need to make sure that people have those basic needs met, because without those basic needs met, dealing with any other issues that might arise is not even, that's going to be a back burner thing when somebody's basic needs like having food and housing isn't there. So, I would encourage the community as a whole, both inside and outside the recovery community, for us to continue to support one another, to come together, to educate ourselves. And like James said, CRSs are highly underutilized because we have the unique skill set and education to navigate and direct people to where they need to be. So you tell me this, and this is what's wrong with you. And my job is to know this, and about everything in the community so I can get you to where you need to be. So as everybody else already said, the wonderful thing about this is that we are not alone. And there is people like recovery support specialists out there who can help guide those just coming in. And just on a personal note, I can't wait to not go to a Zoom meeting. I have struggled deeply with not being present in the same room with other people, because there is an energy and there is a love and there's a different feeling when you are present with somebody else and able to openly share with them. And so while it's such a wonderful gift that we have the opportunity to utilize, the virtual community and electronics in the way that we have, I really think we need to honor when people are saying that they're struggling with that. And I do think that this is definitely a time to not attack one another for their opinions on the subject. Simply acknowledging where somebody's at, honoring that, but saying, okay, well, what can I do? And then responding appropriately, practicing acceptance, but practicing grace and love and compassion and understanding. So I also encourage you all to do that. And that's another little call to action. Anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to finish up by saying part of my story includes me saying, when I came into recovery, I had finally been convinced that I couldn't do it alone. I learned that I shouldn't do it alone. And so I made a commitment not to do it alone. And, that has spilled over into many aspects of my life. And, and again, this example of living through this is just another reason or another confirmation of that same thing. So
thanks for having us.
Very nice.
But that's all. Oh, sorry.
Well, okay. Thank you, Becca. Thank you, James. And I agree with everything you all just said. I think this is going to evolve. It's going to change, but we're going to be in a different environment moving forward. And the good news is that we all together as a community get to shape what that environment is. We really do. Like, we all matter in this situation. And so every step we take, every action we take, every engagement we have, we get to decide what that is. So, I mean, that to me is full of promise, and it's full of excitement, even though we're going through everything we're going through. So yeah. Next is Stacy Eminger, and for those of you that don't know Stacy, she is the El Presidente. She is not the owner, but the operator and the founder of DSAA in I almost said Mountville, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. And Stacy, are you there?
I am here.
Hello, Stacy. Why don't you
Hello.
just go for it, young
I will
lady.
go for it. So our center is currently closed because of COVID. However, we are still providing services. We're available by phone, by email, by our Facebook. We're helping people find treatment. We're helping families that are struggling with addiction. And we're also providing some online things, and that's what I want to talk about. Zoom, which I had never used before this, has been sort of our savior. We are offering Mindfulness Mondays from 7 to 8 on Mondays. We are offering Family Support Group from 6:30 to 7:30 on Tuesdays. We have 12-step yoga on Wednesdays from 7 to 8. And we have regular yoga on Fridays at 3 p.m. The links for all of those are on our Facebook page. It's Facebook, DSAA, Donegal Substance Abuse Alliance. And we are excited to have these events because we're finding that people still need that context. People need to learn how to be mindful to relieve the stress and anxiety, because I think we're all sort of living that high bar right now. And why am I not on? My camera shouldn't be off. Anyway, I'll see if I can get my camera going. Nope, it says it can't start it. So sorry about that. And on that note, we have from 8 to 8:30 today, we are offering a special mindfulness program. It is also on Zoom. And Christine, do you have that link available? I'm assuming. And so hopefully my screen is working by then. It is on Zoom. It is at 8 o'clock, which is in about 10 minutes. And hopefully we'll see you all there. And I'm going to toss it back to Scott because nobody can see me.
Yeah, the technology is fantastic, right? I mean, thank you, Stacy. Anybody in the Mount Joy area, or even if you're not in the Mount Joy area, Stacy has a wonderful room. It's awesome. It's a safe place. Very good energy, lots of momentum, and all kinds of creativity going on. So if you get a chance to check out Stacy's website or Facebook page, you can contact her if you have questions. Thanks, Stacy, for being here.
Of course.
Julia and Chris, are we to that point yet, right?
We are. So Julia has been on the A game in terms of posting all the links and stuff in the live chat on YouTube. And we have had a couple of questions. There is still time if you have more questions to put your questions in the YouTube chat box. Jay and Becca gonna throw a question your way. We have someone asking, is it hard for the newcomer, or is it the fact that we have experienced the face-to-face meetings? Virtual meetings are their normal. They may struggle adjusting when we go back to what we old timers call normal. Do you want to speak to that at all?
So I think that's definitely an interesting perspective and valid, but and I can't give, obviously the only thing I can offer on that is my opinion, my personal opinion based on my experience. And with that, what I would say is that I've already described what happens when you are in a room with somebody. And when you are in a room with 20, 30 other people who are just like you, and you have that connection and you experience that is distinctly different from what takes place in the virtual meetings. And I've experienced both. And I'm not saying that you can't establish connections in a virtual meeting, because you can, but you have to put forth a lot of effort. In my experiences in early recovery, you're not equipped with the tools to engage in healthy relationships, to even want to step outside your comfort zone to engage with somebody. So that's the unique thing that the in-person meetings offer us. And so I would say that there might be a difficulty in them engaging an in-person meeting because they become used to the Zoom. But I would say that they're definitely going to get something different out of it that they didn't get in the Zoom. You get something different from each tool. And that's just been my experience. And I'll let Jay comment on that, what he thinks.
Yeah, what I would say is that, you know, for myself, my personal experience, being new in recovery, you know, I was awkward around people. I didn't know how to properly socialize. I had been isolated for so long in my active addiction that, you know, I had a lot of anxiety coming into, you know, a room filled with 10, 20, 30 people, you know. So the Zooms, you know, probably would have been great for me, you know, early in recovery, but knowing myself, knowing a little bit about my disease today, would I have been able to sustain any type of relationship with other recovering addicts? Probably not, because I would still technically be isolated by myself. You know, I can log on and log off. I don't have to stay in the meeting from prayer to prayer. I don't have anybody holding me accountable, you know. With so many people being in the Zooms, you know, you don't really see everyone. So I don't have people saying, hey, I didn't see you at the meeting tonight. Like, what's going on? You know, I don't have that accountability, you know, which is something you get when you go to an in-person meeting, you know, and as well as that spiritual connection that you feel just by being in the presence of someone other, someone else that's in recovery, you know, just you know, getting those when you're sharing about where you're at and how you're feeling, or you know, if you want to use, just getting those little ad libs of like, yeah, like I've been there too, you know. You can't get that in Zooms because everyone's on mute. You know, so you really feel like you're just talking to yourself, you know. So I know for me now, you know, having some time in recovery, it's a struggle for me now, you know. So I couldn't imagine, you know, early in recovery, because early in recovery, I didn't want to put in the extra work. I didn't want to do anything I wasn't comfortable with. And when I don't do those things, change doesn't happen. And change is what's necessary for recovery to happen, you know. And it's hard, not saying that it can't be done through Zoom, but it's extremely hard, you know. Whereas I had, you know, those other members in person, like pushing me to show up and pushing me to get into service. And I've learned from my experience that being in service and being able to make coffee and set the chairs up, you know, it forced me to be at the meeting early. It forced me to stay at the meeting late. It forced me to get to talk to other home group members, you know, and develop those types of relationships. Whereas you can't really be in service via Zoom. I mean, the only thing you can really do is host a meeting. You know, so I mean, it could go both ways, and recovery is different for everyone, and everyone has a different experience. So, you know, just because it you know, it might not work for someone, it might work for someone, you know. So it's based off of that individual, and pretty much, you know, whatever. I will say this, when it comes to recovery, whatever you're looking for, like, you will get. You know, when I was using and I wanted to get that next one, like, I did anything and everything I could to get that next one. I worked that hard. It didn't matter if I didn't have $1 to my name. I found ways and means to get that next one. And I applied those same skills to my recovery. So I truly, you know, did anything and everything I could to get another day clean, and I still do to this day. You know, and you know, it's unfortunate to say, but I say all the time, you know, recovery is for those that want it, not necessarily for those that need it. You know, so that's my outtake on everything.
I'd like to say a couple of, and only just because my observations with the residents of the recovery houses. You know, a wise person once told me, and Jay, I think, alluded to it when he talked about isolating himself. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the struggle or part of the challenge of a Zoom meeting is that there isn't that connection that I think each of us is striving for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it does make, you know, when we aren't comfortable around people, it's real easy to hide behind a computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
And go to a meeting, but not having to interact and not having to go outside of our comfort zone and talk to someone who may come up and talk to us, you know, who recognizes us as a new person. And again, like you said, not that it can't be done, but I think it just creates a little bit more of a challenge, you know. And I go back to my residents in my recovery houses, and you know, they live together, but they're all in early recovery. It was also suggested to me that I hang out with the winners, right? And you know, and it was explained to me that these were the people that had learned to traverse life successfly, you know, and I was to learn from them and how they do it. Well, you know, when you stick a bunch of new people together, you know, and then ask them to learn from each other, they're gonna, and I know, you know, and I did this, you know, from experience too, is I tried doing what other new people were doing, and it didn't really work out real well for me. None of us had, we all had ideas and none of them were good. So
right. That's why I said they lack the tools, and you don't learn how to build relationships and connection with people without practicing building relationships and connections with people.
And that's why reaching out is so important.
Yeah.
Like Becca said earlier.
Very thorough answers, all three of you. Thank you very much. I think it might be interesting for us to have future conversations to kind of talk through some ways that we can get creative to foster those connections and sort of prepare for some of those transitions when we're leaving our homes again and we are stepping back into the rooms. That might be an interesting topic to kind of explore. We do have one more question. And this is for Melinda and Andrea. What would you recommend to people both inside and outside the recovery community, to parents and families that struggle with family violence and other issues during this time?
I feel like that's a hard one, because inside or outside of a pandemic, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems is our society is problems like that going on in our homes and feeling like there's no way out of it and not knowing who to go to about it. There's crisis numbers all over the place, and I would just reach out and utilize them. There isn't more than you can do than that. You know, you don't want to stay stuck in that situation. And there really is no reason to, no matter how many different things you think to yourself or you're being told by the person who's abusing you. If you're being abused, you need to get out of that situation and reach out to the various resources. As well as if you know that somebody is being abused, even if you're not directly related to that situation, you're still involved in it and you need to report it to the proper authorities, because during this pandemic, it has raised by disgusting numbers. It's very upsetting. It's something that I think we all kind of knew was going to happen, especially in this time where, you know, we are isolated in our houses. The children aren't in schools. Doctor's appointments are telehealth, and you just don't have enough eyes on the different members in a family. So this is the time where, you know, people who are abusive are really using for evil. And I cannot stress enough that there are many different resources out there that you can reach out, you know, and even if you don't know the numbers to call, you can still Google it.
I agree with Melinda. It is quite a difficult time that we find ourselves in all across America, not just in Lancaster County, because a lot of the referrals, like we're talking about, for, let's say, CYS or for other programs, we're just not seeing them because the children, like she said, are not going to the doctor's office. People are a little bit more, I don't want to say sequestered, but people are stuck in their homes. And for a large part of the society, home is not a safe place. I would just, there's still the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and that's 1-800-799-7233. I realize that it may be difficult to try to call while you're in your home with an abuser. I can also say that here in Lancaster County, the crisis intervention hotline has not closed. Although the county building right now is not open to the public, those services, CYS, early intervention, crisis intervention, all of those services remain ongoing. We are, you know, still here. And I would just say to try to get a hold of someone whom you can trust. If you're not able to leave the situation, if you're not able to safely Google the resources or make those phone calls to get a hold of someone whom you can trust, there's definitely people around Melinda, myself, anyone here, I believe on this chat would be willing, you know, as a certified recovery specialist, I definitely would help connect you to those resources or just be an ear to listen until these stay-at-home orders are lifted. But it's such a challenging situation because domestic violence survivors are already marginalized. There's already that, you know, the abuse kind of thrives in secrecy and seclusion. And that is where we are. And it's such a social service nightmare that we find ourselves into because we have an epidemic in the midst of a pandemic, on top of child abuse, on top of domestic violence, on top of sexual trafficking. It's just a lot of for a community to deal with. But one thing that I can say about the recovery community, and I think Marilyn said it earlier, we help those because we've been there before. So I would just say reach out in any way that you can, even if it's a, you know, a coded text message, please reach out.
Absolutely.
To someone.
Because there's people out there who truly care, like myself and everybody, you know, on this panel. And I'm telling you, they will rally around you and try to help you in any way that they can.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know if, I don't know, Chris, if maybe we can get a slide up, but I would certainly put my cell phone number on there just for someone to have a number with a face to connect to for any reason. I would be willing to do that.
I think what we will do is Julia has been putting up all the hotline numbers, all the 24-hour hotline numbers in the chat box, and then for anybody else who needs to sort of reach out beyond that or in a different context, they can contact us through LancasterJoiningForces.org, and then we'll get them connected with the most appropriate person. But it's been said several times here, lots of supports and services in Lancaster, lots of people willing to help meet whatever needs you might be having right now, regular needs, new needs, old needs, all the needs. And yes, of course, Race Project is a great place to start. So Julia's got all of those in the live chat for us, and those will be there also when folks are viewing this after we're done. So Scott, those are all the questions. I'll toss it back over to you to close us out.
I just want to thank everybody for giving your time tonight for this conversation. It was very meaningful, and I'm very grateful to know everybody. And I learn a lot from y'all just listening to you every day, and I really mean that. So meant a lot to me that you gave your time up tonight to be a part of this. So and thanks to everybody for listening. Again, if you have questions, Julia's been posting stuff on the YouTube page. Use the links, and we'll see you out there. Thanks.
Thank you.